you can't let it go because that's what you love to do. You know what I mean? You love getting the perfect drum sound, and then this cat comes in the room and he's like, "Yo, I don't want to use that mic right now," and you're like, "That's the mic I want to use." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we become emotionally attached to those sounds that we make.
Yeah.
But they're not our sounds. They're the artist's sounds.
I also think that when you let go of that kind of concept and you're like, I'm just going to go with the flow, and if he wants to change the setup, I'm cool with that. I think that more times than not, you kind of, you learn a lesson from it. You know what I mean? Like, I've had this happen in mixing a million times where I'll have something, like, I'll mix something and, play it to the band or to the artist, and I'll be like, what do you think about it? And they'll take me to a completely different direction of where I thought the song should be. And usually what happens is it starts with a really weird idea, and as an engineer, you tend to think like, oh, that's super dumb. I'm going to be wasting my time chasing that idea. But you do it anyway. And I feel like I've learned the most amount of tricks and also like new sounds doing that type of like idea chasing. And like I have a bunch of examples of like that sort of thing happening where like the singer would come up and he'd be like, yo, turn off all the effects, just turn off everything. And you're like, you gotta keep a little bit of reverb, trying to sneak it in. He's like, no, turn everything off. Just keep the vocals super dry. And you're like, dude, that's not going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. And then, you turn everything off and you get a new sound. I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Trust the process and give the artists a voice as well.
Yeah,
I love that.
I feel
that's a
like
great takeaway.
Like one last thing I'm going to say about this subject is like, if you do that and you're kind of like you're true to yourself about it, you're like, I'm really gonna give this a try, whatever it is. Then a lot of times, if it doesn't work, the artist will be more relaxed in giving you the next kind of chance. And it's like, okay, that was a dumb idea, but we tried it. What did you have in mind? And then you can do your thing.
That's like the classic psychological trick that we use as producers. Is we say, oh, okay, let's just try it, and then they'll see for themselves if it's a good idea or not.
Yeah,
and either way, it's like you said. Either way, it's a win.
Yeah.
If you if you empower the artists, like at the end of the day, it's a win.
Exactly.
That's awesome, dude. So actually, your mixes sound amazing. Speaking of mixing, like, what's your approach to mixing? Like, do you do anything specific? Do you go out of the box? Do you have templates? Tell us everything.
Okay. This is going to be long.
This is what I want to hear, man.
Okay.
This is what the people want.
Well, so I'm an intuition kind of guy. So I really believe in first listen intuition. And I feel like my whole concept of mixing is based on intuition. And when I say intuition, what I mean is the first time I listen to a song, the first impression I have of it and the first like kind of thoughts that I have in my head when I listen to it are probably the things that I'm going to be focusing on when I'm mixing the song. And I know it sounds like a very basic concept, but it's actually quite difficult to do. Like you gotta have some you gotta practice it quite a bit to get to the point of actually doing that. Because I think as an engineer, you're kind of drawn into soloing instruments and making them sound amazing by their own. And I kind of try and not do that as much as I can. So if I open a track and it sounds amazing, except I don't know, like I'm not feeling the vocals are in the right place, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with working on the vocals, and I'll just leave everything else the way it was. So I think that's like maybe my kind of number one trick in mixing is to kind of focus on your first feeling, because like sound compared to light, it's kind of weird. Like if you're like staring at I don't know, like a black surface for 15 hours, it's still going to be black after 15 hours. It's not going to change. Like your opinion about the color is not going to change. But if you're listening to a track that has like a bunch of high mids for 10 hours, after an hour, after half an hour, you might not be sure that it has that high mid anymore. You know, like your brain and your ear.
It's deceptive. And like the fatigue is real also.
Yeah. But you know what else is real is people who are going to listen to the song are probably going to listen to it one time if you're lucky, and like 10 seconds of it if you're not lucky. But they're not going to be listening to it like 50 times the way you're listening to it. So I feel like the first time you listen to a track means the most, because that's when you're actually listening to it like just a normal guy listening to it on the radio.
Right.
And the most mistakes I've made doing mixes are usually mixes that are kind of really long, and it's like the 15th time that you open up the session and you're like, I'm not sure about anything anymore. It just sounds like a bunch of instruments. You know?
Welcome to my brain.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
So my whole my whole concept of mixing is to try and do things as quick as possible so I stay fresh. So I literally try, I know this sounds crazy, but I literally try and mix within like, to get like the most, like the basic kind of structure of the mix within half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I call it the golden 30 minutes. And those 30 minutes I feel like are the most important part of any mix.
Yeah. Wow. I've been actually talking about this a lot recently on the show about how for me it's like 2 hours. You know, I got 2 hours, and if I do it between like 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., I'm set. Like that's my golden hour. Like 10, it's like for me it's like 2 hours, but 30 minutes. That's next level. You know.
I feel like something really interesting happens with 30 minutes because, first of all, you got to prepare. So you prep the session really well before you start. You kind of you do all the auxes, rename everything, color everything the way you like it, make it yours, and then what happens is like every time I mix, generally I freak out. I freak out that I'm not going to have enough time to figure this out in 30 minutes. So you're like, I got to do this quick. And what happens with your brain, I feel like, is you kind of you play a mind game on yourself, because you're like, I only have 30 minutes. So, and what I'm doing right now is this 2 minutes? Is this 2 minutes important for the mix, or can I just move on and come back to it later? And a lot of times I'll do something and I'll be like, okay, this isn't perfect, but I'm probably not going to finish touching up all the instruments that I want to touch up in 30 minutes. So I'm just going to leave it like this and come back to it later. And when you do that,
wow,
half of the time what happens is you kind of like realize after listening back to it after half an hour, you're like, it sounds pretty awesome. Like, I don't know if I want to go back and tweak it again, you know? So.
Oh my God. Dude, I love that. That's like, that's an amazing piece of advice for the listeners of the show, and something probably I needed to hear also. But it's like, you lose objectivity so quickly, and it just seems to me that like the less you mix something, the better better it turns out, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're audio engineers, so we hear all those stupid, you know, high mid frequencies that we feel like we need to cut out. but like, if you do too much of it, it kills it. And I mean, I'm certainly guilty of this, and I'm working on it. But like, yeah, it's I really feel you.
Another little thing about like the 30 minutes thing is if you go with an idea for 30 minutes and and you either send it to a client or you're in the room with the client and you turn around and you're like, let's listen back to it and let me know what you think. If the guy doesn't like it, if he has a different concept about where he wants the song to go, you're really not attached to it. It only took you 30 minutes. So you're like, okay, cool. We could do that like 3 times before I get frustrated. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
a bunch of times what happened was I would have a certain concept. I would be like, yo, this track is going to be bass thick. You know, I'm gonna pump up the bass. I'm gonna put like our bass on the kick. I'm gonna go crazy with the bass, and then I do it, and I get this whole picture going. Turn around to the producer and I'm like, what do you think? He's like, dude, the bass is way too much, and I don't think it's a good concept. Now, if you have been working on it for like 2 or 3 hours, you wouldn't so easily just be like, okay, let's just do it again. Let's do another 3 hours and try a different concept. But if it's 30 minutes, you just do another 30 minutes. It's fun too. It's fun to see where you could take a track in 30 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's great. Yeah. I also believe in like kind of sending a mix when it's kind of, this is the vibe. What do you think? And then if they like it, great. Let's tweak it and make it better. Like, do the fine tuning. Yeah. And then if not, great, move on. Let's adjust things, I think it's a great way
I also think that like you get to this point where, especially if you're working with clients that you really care about, like if it's like a high profile client or like somebody that you've been like dying to work with or something, you get into their head in the sense of like, or they get into your head in the sense of like you're constantly thinking about what they're going to think about the thing that you do, and you kind of put your mind into thinking about how their other albums sound like and stuff like that. And I feel like if you present it as like, this is just an idea of what it can be if you like it, but we can do a bunch of other things too, you kind of break the ice really quickly because they also feel free to say like, no, that sucks, Bran. Like,
yeah,
not what I'm going for,
Yeah, I totally hear that. Yeah, that they could really get into your heads, like the artist. You're just like, you want it to be something they're gonna like, and that's probably an unhealthy place to mix from.
I think so. Yeah, I think that like also obviously musicians and artists are creative people, so I always felt like in mixing they want to get the most creative experience they can get. They don't want to go to the like dentist. You know what I'm saying? Which is sometimes how it feels to go and I guess mix your song is like you go and do the thing that you need to do in order to get the song out. But if you have this like rad experience of like just going crazy in the studio with a bunch of ideas, I think as a musician you probably are going to have more fun. You're probably going to want to have more experiences like that with the engineer. I don't know. That's my 2 cents to it.
Absolutely. So any other things we should know about your mixing approach? Like, do you have like a template, or are you using are you going out of the box? Anything like that?
Yeah, I have a template. I basically have a bunch of templates, to be honest. Like, I have a bunch of templates, and then when I listen to a song, I'll kind of navigate through the templates and be like, what am I going here for? I'm going for like a super poppy in your face mix. Am I going for like a really chill kind of stonery with a bunch of delays thing? What I'm going for? And once I decide on the template, what I do is I import the template into the session, and the templates I have don't have any sounds on them. So like, they have a bunch of inserts on them, but all the inserts are inactive. So what I try and do is when I start a mix, it just has whatever the producer brought me. So if he brought me a Pro Tools session, it will have all his plugins on it, and it would just be routed into my auxes.